Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the 6 a.m. Club where we start our day inspired. It's been a little while since I've been here in my house recording a podcast episode, mostly because we were on vacation and I'd front-loaded a lot of the recording before we left. So it's been over a month and it feels weird, but it feels really, really good to be back home into my routine and speaking to you through the microphone. This is one part of my routine that I'm very passionate about, that I love, that energizes me. And I'm just happy to be here and be back at recording podcast episodes every week. So let's dive into this week's quote. And the quote says, "The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra." Let me repeat it one more time. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. And it's so true. A lot of times we believe that it takes a ton of effort to go from ordinary to extraordinary. We all, in some way, shape, or form, aspire to be extraordinary in something, in an area of our life, in a part of our work, in a part of what we do, in the things that we do, in how we show up, in our hobbies, in a sport, whatever it is. I think deep dive, we all aspire to be extraordinary in some shape or form, in some area of our lives. And a lot of times we feel that we can't be extraordinary because there is this big gap between where we are and becoming extraordinary. We believe that it is going to take a ton of effort, that it is going to be very difficult, that maybe we don't have the talents or the abilities to be extraordinary in that thing. I've been there. This podcast is a very good example. I aspire to be extraordinary in what I do here in the podcast. And there's been many times that I had second-guessed myself and I have told myself, you know what? This is not for you. There's other people that are extraordinary. That's not you. Will never be you. And how many times we tell these things and we have these narratives in our head, when the truth is, what I have found out in other areas of my life is that the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is sometimes that 2 millimeter difference, right? I have heard Tony Robbins speak about the difference between good, excellent, and extraordinary, right? And between good and excellent, there's a big gap. But then from excellent to extraordinary is a 2 millimeter difference. And a lot of times we're just 2 millimeters away from being extraordinary, and we just don't know. Sometimes it just takes that small little action. The secret a lot of times is just that action needs to be consistent. And that's probably the hardest part of it. But it doesn't take extraordinary action. It just takes a little extra, a little tiny little action to propel you to become extraordinary. The secret is to figure out what is that 2 millimeter thing that you can do that will propulse you to be extraordinary. And if you don't know what that is, because that might be the hardest part to figure out what that is, I always think that in every case, one place to start is to start developing consistency, right? What are little tiny actions that doing consistently can help you excel at anything that you want to excel? For me, for example, and I don't consider myself extraordinary yet. I will get there. I'm not there yet. I also hold myself to very high standards. And for for me means extraordinary might mean something different for you. But I can tell you that since I started this journey on podcasting, I have improved so much. And this has translated in other areas of my life as well. And the only thing that it has taken from me is tiny little actions done consistently over time. In my case, showing up every week and talking to you through my microphone. And as time goes by and I gain more practice to become better at what I do. And that's what most extraordinary people do. Think about it. Think about maybe a role model that you have, someone that you think is extraordinary. We can think in the field of sports, for example, the best of the best. We cannot tell that they were born with a different talent than anyone else. But what I'm sure we can tell with confidence is that they were dedicated to their passion. They were consistent in taking action. They made the sacrifices to develop that consistency, sometimes to levels that we're not willing to do. And that's a different question, right? Whether we're willing to put in that work that is required. But what it takes is tiny actions done consistently. So if you have been thinking about how to become extraordinary in any area of your life, or you are aspiring to be extraordinary in any area, stop thinking about the big actions that you have to take and start thinking about what is one tiny little action that you can start doing even right now and stay consistent with it for the next 30 days. And then in 30 days, sit down and reflect on what has changed. How have you changed? What is different? What progress have you made? And then adjust that tiny little action based on the results and stay consistent for another 30 days. And I promise, I guarantee you that you are going to see bigger changes that you would expect could come from such a tiny action that maybe it's not even an extra load for you. It doesn't feel like a chore. It doesn't feel like something unattainable or something that you can't even think about doing. It might be something that just takes 5 minutes a day. The key is to be consistent, right? So ask yourself, what is that one tiny little action? What is that little extra you can do today? And do it consistently for the next 30 days. And I will love to hear from you how that goes. And you can reach out to me via social media, through the voicemail on the podcast, if you're listening through Spotify, or you can email me. You can find all my contact information in one of our regular podcast episodes. I can't wait to hear how that little extra is adding a big extra to your life.